Welcome back to the McCoy Leadership Podcast, elevating your impact through valuable insights and conversations about leadership. Welcome back to another episode of the McCoy Leadership Podcast, and today we have Nick Garofalo with us. Nick is a man who loves Jesus, his wife, and his kids in that order. And he has become an expert on wealth, on leadership, and kind of looking at it from a Christian standpoint. And so today, we got two Christian guys sitting here that are going to have this amazing conversation about what wealth looks like and some leadership tips along the way from a Christian standpoint. Nick, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how did you end up here?
Amos, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite and that great introduction. I'm excited to dive into the conversation with you today. So, yeah, a little bit, I guess, about what got me here. You know, it's kind of a long family story. I worked for my dad for a number of years in the family business with a couple other family members as well, and we had a lot of fun. Certainly some tough times as a family business, as anybody who's been in family business knows. But, you know, God really saw us through and, you know, what I saw and what I learned in that experience opened my eyes to the need for bringing in advisors in different stages of your life to help navigate areas that are maybe new or different for you, and how doing that can not only be beneficial for you personally, but how it can be beneficial for you very practically with your business, with wealth creation, with tax optimization, with investment strategy, all of that. And so, you know, for my dad, this looked like bringing in a couple advisors, including a financial planner, setting up a 401k, saving a bunch in taxes, investing in the employees. And in the end, he was able to sell his business and do it, you know, really quite the perfect time. I mean, God really just, I'm telling you, timed everything just pretty much perfectly in that situation, you know, in hindsight. But it opened my eyes to see how important it is to have really the role of a financial planner and how much that can add value. And so it was interesting to me. I've always been a numbers geek, and I've always loved helping people. And so I thought, you know, maybe I could bring this together in a way that, you know, I could kind of come and offer these same sort of skills to the world. So that's how I got where I am today.
I think you said something there I find very interesting. You said, depending on where you're at in your life, you bring different advisors in when you're getting into something new or something different to help you that maybe have already, well, I'm adding to that. I'm assuming you mean advisors that have already been through it. I'm assuming that you would not go out and get a physical therapist to help you invest money, or, you know,
probably not,
or get your investment guy to help you figure out your exercise plan. They might not work, right? What, you know, when you're going through that process, so all of our listeners know I'm a consultant as well. So what would you recommend to people when they're thinking about, let's use you as an example, they're looking at some new wealth things and they're out looking for somebody maybe that can help them? What should they be looking for? Is it just a quick Google search and you pick the guy that's closest to you? Or, you know, do you look around and ask some questions? What would be your advice to somebody looking for an advisor?
Well, I mean, great question, Amos. I mean, if you were looking for an advisor today, you'd probably first want to start with someone who's aligned with the most core part of who you are, right? So you're probably going to want to find a faith first advisor, a Christian first, advisor second kind of person. Certainly someone who's been the road that you're trying to walk down, who's been through it before, or who certainly knows the way. Someone that, you know, people work with people that they know, like, and trust, right? So find someone, whether they're through a friend, a family member, a referral. I certainly would not recommend just Googling and taking the first name, but, you know, to your point, I mean, this is a very relational business, as you know. I mean, consulting is very relational. And so faith first, referrals second, and then, you know, schedule a call and see how you like them.
So you said it, faith first, and then, you know, do some research and see, I think in your words, you just said who's aligned with you. So, you know, would it make sense for a Catholic to go out and find an Amish advisor? Is that a good fit?
I don't know. That sounds like a great opening line to a joke, but so like with my dad's story, right? Like my dad was not a numbers guy. He was kind of a serial entrepreneur. He was a great startup guy, and he was really good at growing a business to a certain point. He'd done it a few times, and when it started to grow, the business that I worked in with him, it grew to a point that was kind of exceeding his operational experience level and really his skill set. So he brought in extra people. He brought in an outside CEO, brought in some sales support, and then he brought in other advisors in the areas where he was not very strong, right? In accounting and taxes and financial stewardship. And he would sit regularly down with our pastor, with other like-hearted men, local leaders in the community, and just talk business, talk life with them. And that's, I feel like everybody needs to do that in their life, to curate kind of a personal board of advisors for your own life. I mean, Proverbs talks about the abundance of counselors. There's victory in battle. The horse is made ready for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. Like, we have a job to do to make ready the horse, to sharpen the tools to go to work and to do our best. But it's in the abundance of wisdom and of experience and of counsel that we can really find success in the truest and most the most beautiful definition of that word. So that's a very loaded term, by the way, success. But in that abundance is where we can, that abundance of counselors, where we can find it.
But if I share with my advisor and tell them that I'm really weak in finance, well, then they might take advantage of me, right? So I can't share with anybody that I'm weak. I mean, that's terrible. So I need to hide it. That would make more sense, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a great strategy for growth in life. I highly recommend, especially in marriage. It's a great approach in marriage. No, I feel like you're setting me up for something here, aren't you? You're 100% right.
Have you ever run into that? I mean, have you run into people that...
Yeah, I mean, especially with us as guys, we don't like to ask for help. We like to ask people to come work alongside us as we're doing something. We don't want to ask someone for help on figuring out how to do it, right? It's so much easier to say, hey, miss, I'm retiling the bathroom. Can you come over and help me? Than for me to say, hey, miss, I've never retiled a bathroom, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit I don't even know where to begin. You have, could you teach me? That requires humility and vulnerability, because you could say, You don't know how to do this? And I'm afraid you might make fun of me or think less of me for my lack of experience or wisdom. Same with finances, right? And that is way more loaded, because finances are one of those three things that we're never supposed to talk about in life. And so meeting people in that space is very, very interesting, especially couples. Sometimes I'm having conversations with couples for the first time that they've never had with each other. And that's a really interesting space to be in. It brings up a lot of... it brings up a lot of, I don't want to say fear and anxiety, but certainly it could, right? It sure could.
And you bring up, I think, another kind of neat point. So if you're a small business and you're starting to grow, by nature, if you're a small business, does that involve your family? I mean, even though you are the sole proprietor or you are the CEO of your one-person operation, when you're at that level, when you're just one person, does that involve your kids and your wife or your husband? I mean, whatever. Or do you just keep that all separate and say, nope, that's my business? What are your thoughts?
Okay. Well, I think as a leadership consultant, you would encourage all of us to have good, healthy boundaries, right? And so it's definitely important to have... to be able to have a dinner table conversation about something besides your business.
Yes.
But with your spouse, with your kids, your business is not in a vacuum, and it's not distinct from most of the rest of your life and your thoughts. And so you have to have a place to share that, and a place where those burdens can be shouldered with you.
What about, one more question before we move in to
Sure.
kind of our topic for the day. And I think from my end, this is something that I run into. And I'll be honest, it's something sometimes I struggle with, but I want your thoughts. in your intro that you say, this is who I am. You say, I'm a guy who loves Jesus, my wife, and my kids. Now, I know you put it in that order because that's the right order. It's faith, spouse, children. But is that always true? Because when I start a new business, the general concept out there is, if you start a new business, you got to work 80 hours a week. And you just got to do it, because when you're first starting out, you're not going to get any breaks, right? So you got to work, you got to help your clients. So is it okay during that time to put my business ahead of Jesus?
So maybe I could improve that question a little with a follow-up. Is it okay to work 80 hours? Is working 80 hours in your new business a guarantee that you're putting it ahead of Jesus?
Not always, no. I think you can work 80 hours and still keep Christ at the center of it. But at some point, in my honest opinion, when you're starting something like that, and now I'm answering my own questions. How'd you do that? You got me to answer the question. But I believe that you have to be very careful, because even if you think you're keeping Christ at the center of it, I think you can very easily put your business in between. And so instead of being Christ, spouse, children, it's moving and creeping up, and sometimes is maybe in there ahead of children and spouse. And I think even that, at times, any success has a little bit of a price with it, right? The great John Maxwell often says, are you willing to pay the price to get there? And I think you have to have honest conversations around that, so that everybody's aware that this week I need to be businessman Nick, and next week I'm going to be family man Nick, and you got to acknowledge it. You can't just do it and say, expect everybody to understand it. But I still think that many people, and I think it's very easy to do, can for periods of time move the business to the head of the line because they feel that's more important. And I had a guest on recently. I don't think it, by the time this airs, it will have been on. They kind of called it rational lying. And you heard me there, rational lying. And what he said is, when you try to rationalize things, you are telling yourself rational lies by saying it's okay to do this for 3 weeks or a month or what have you. So any other thoughts now that I answered my own question? I got to get better at this. I'm a pretty poor interviewer, I guess.
I respect your perspective on that much more than my own. I'm presently myself in the thick of it, and I'm living out what you just described. I heard a friend of mine say once that work-life balance is all about periods of work-life imbalance. Sounds kind of, pithy or cliched, but to your other colleague's point about rational lying, something about that struck a chord with me when he said that, because I could recognize, okay, yeah, this is a season where you start a business, you have to work a lot. There's so much to do, and either it's going to take you X number of years to get off the ground, or you can put in a lot of time and you can start to get there a little bit more quickly, just because there's just that much to do. And I'm right in the thick of it right now, right? And I have a few family members as well in similar stages. My brother-in-law, some other friends in early stage business. It's a tough trap, because when you're here, you can't imagine relinquishing the things that just have to get done, Amos. Like I can't let fill in the blank go till next week or tomorrow. I can't just turn it off at 5 o'clock and go home because fill in your own blank, right? But how long do you continue that before you recognize the cost, the toll it's taking on you, and then make adjustments to your own expectations of yourself?
So it's kind of fascinating. I didn't mean to cut you off, but sometimes the Holy Spirit moves in very unique ways. And I am working right now on, I don't know what it's going to be. It could be a white paper and it could be a 80 chapter book. I'm not sure because there's a lot of information here. But what I'm working on is Ecclesiastes, and specifically Ecclesiastes 3, which is there's a time for everything, and then it goes through 28 sets of there's a time for this, so on and so forth. And also in the beginning of Ecclesiastes, I believe he says that there's nothing new under the sun. And what is kind of encouraging, and I'm putting it all together, is that you mentioning that at different points in your life, you need to be able to bring advisors in to help you is one piece, because there is nothing new under the sun. I guarantee you there's somebody out there that has went through what you have went through. And so hence that's kind of the reason for our podcast is we're often talking to experts that have been through different things. But the whole idea that there's a time for everything, the second part of that is now is not necessarily the time for everything. And it's contemplating that. And I'm not going to hijack our conversation. But I think, it's just important to mention there that people that are struggling with that, as you and I both are, I think a study of Ecclesiastes would be extremely helpful in laying through that. But getting ourselves back onto track, we wanted to talk a little bit about profit today. And one of your things is profit isn't a dirty word. Can you elaborate a little bit on why you think some Christian business owners struggle with the idea of having profit?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that our conversation thread from earlier will probably weave its way back into this as well about bringing advisors in. If you own a business and you've grown it to a point that it's providing for you and potentially providing for the livelihood of others, first off, congratulations. I think business success is one of the ways that we can bring a lot of glory and honor God in the work that we do and bringing order to chaos. And that's what God made us to do in the dominion mandate, back in Genesis, right? So take what he's made, the beautiful canvas, this resourceful planet that he's put us on, and go make something, innovate, get creative, do something for the good of others, and make a profit in the process. Sometimes that making a profit can make us uncomfortable. Ask me how I know. Because sometimes it feels as though Christians, we should just give away everything, including, our services or our products for free. That's one side. The other side is, an overfocus on that is then condemned as materialistic. So there is a way, I believe, to navigate business success while maintaining your integrity, and it comes from a stewardship mindset. Right? Everything we have has been entrusted to us for a season. We're not on this earth for very long. This life is short, right? The business success that you're experiencing is even shorter. I was talking to somebody earlier, and he mentioned there's a McKinsey study done that most of the companies in the S&P 500 probably will not be here in 18 years. Just the life cycle of business. So how much shorter might my business's life cycle be, right? Even if it's 20 or 30 years, that's really long, but it's my point being, a stewardship mentality says the money, the time, skills, talents, relationships, energy that I have, all of those resources, they've been entrusted to me for a time. And what would the owner of these resources do with them? And then we seek to go out and do that thing.
So
it takes a lot of the pressure off.
Hoarding all of our money and keeping it in a big safe in our office for a rainy day, you're suggesting that maybe that's not the best idea. And as well, and I do believe, and I mean, from my end, it's fine to have some money for a rainy day or to have money for your family after you're gone, those types of things. But can you take any of it with you?
Yeah, of course not, right? And like you said, I mean, hoarding money for a rainy day, that sounds an awful lot like we're looking to the money to provide something for us that it never can. namely security, protection, right? Proverbs says that a rich man's wealth is like a high wall in his imagination. There's something very insulating about wealth that makes us feel very safe, very secure. And the absence of wealth makes us feel the opposite. It makes us feel very vulnerable, very exposed. And yet it's in that vulnerability and that exposed place, no matter what the number is, that God wants to meet us. He wants to meet us there and encourage us to place our trust not in the wealth, not in the business, but in the provider, right? Because it's kind of like having the golden eggs or having the goose. I mean, to make a really simple metaphor of it, it's like, well, we have everything we need in God. And he's promised to provide for us. He's promised to give us food and clothing, and you know, our focus needs to be on seeking first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added to you, right? Jesus says. So, you know, yes. Go ahead.
Well, doesn't the Lord's Prayer say, "Give me this day my yearly bread"? Isn't it? I thought that was what it said. Somebody recently reminded me of that. They said, "I'm pretty sure it says daily bread. It doesn't say yearly or seasonal bread. It's daily." So I think that's interesting.
Okay, so I'd love to throw this back to you real quick. How does a Christian approach investing for retirement without just storing up wealth here on earth, contrary to the instruction that Jesus gave us in the parable of the rich fool? So how do we go about saving for a future while still keeping our trust in God?
So, my thoughts are, one, Jesus recognizes and God recognizes that we are, let me rephrase that. When Jesus was on earth, he recognized while here that we are all in a broken world, and nothing has changed there. And God recognizes that as well. And so being that we are in a broken world, we do have to rely on money for some things, right? We can't live without it. But at the same time, if you are giving and you are faithful, God is going to make sure you're provided for. Now, at what level? And so I think that was before the show, we were talking a little bit. I believe in creating yourself your own investment plan. So I look at me personally the same as I do a business, and some years there is going to be excess and other years, there may not be because of various reasons. You can't expect as a young man going out, getting married, starting a family and buying a house, that might be a rough year, right? Financially, you just don't have a lot of extra funds available. But a few years later, as you settle into the new home and you've bought your furniture and the children are growing, you might have better years. And so you need to have a plan behind that of what you're going to do. And that plan, so people get caught up in it, I think sometimes, like, well, I can't have the boat because that's, God says, no, it clearly states that we can enjoy life. We can eat, drink, and enjoy life, right?
Yeah.
And so you can put that as one of the things you want to do, but don't ever put it ahead of keeping Christ at the center of it. And then you put that into your investment strategy. And so how can you look towards the kingdom knowingly without having a plan? So you need to have a personal investment plan, and all of those pieces need to be in there, and they need to be in the right order. That's my look on it.
Oh, I think that's fantastic. I would liken it to the story that we read about in Genesis, right, of Joseph, when he had the dream. There were 7 years of plenty coming, followed by 7 years of famine. In a way, that's a bit analogous to the normal working life cycle of someone in their career. If you think about like a long straight line and kind of a rainbow-shaped arc over the top of it, well, that line kind of represents your lifespan, and the rainbow arc represents your earning capacity. It will rise and grow and peak and then fall at the end of your career when you retire or you're no longer able to work, whether it's manual physical labor or whether it's, mental labor, even if it's, pastoral ministry. At some point in the latter decades of your life, you won't be able to fulfill the duties and requirements of a job in the same way you can in the earlier decades. So what do? Well, you prepare for the coming season of relative famine now in the season of relative harvest. So just like the ant that stores up food in harvest for the coming winter, and just like we as Christians can, with our hands open before God, say, hey, I recognize I'm going to have needs and I don't want to be a burden on my children or grandchildren to provide for me in the latter years of my life. I'm going to save now and ensure myself appropriately to make sure that I'm not an undue burden on them. But I'm also not going to overaccumulate to the point that, God, I don't need you, because I need you more than anything. So I'm going to set a finish line of wealth accumulation and of income. And everything above that, I'm giving away. And that setting that line might be, it's a very subjective process, but it might be, $300,000-400,000 for a family. It could be 150,000. It could be much higher. In the terms of wealth accumulation, that it's going to directly connect based on your income and your expense needs and where you live and your family dynamic and all that. But having a line in place and everything above that being given away is just a beautiful way, I think, to integrate your investment plan idea.
And I also think that it's fair to say all of those things are just seeds for the future. And to the point, as long as you never quit planting seeds, you will always continue to harvest. And they're
spread enough good around and good will grow, right?
Exactly. So thinking back to the business owner, one, what are some financial challenges that you see facing businesses, and how do you help them overcome them? I mean, and I know we're going to be tight on time today, so kind of give me maybe the top three.
Sure. Yeah, mingling personal and business finances together. That's a big one. It creates a lot of undue stress. We think that we're saving a lot on taxes by just running personal expenses through the business. Typically, we're just muddying the waters and making it more confusing. And a lot of times that's costing us more in administrative time than it would have cost us in taxes if we just kept things clean and tidy. It also robs you of a true picture of your business performance, which you can't operate without financial clarity. So it's costing you more than you think. Second thing is not de-risking your own life by having all of your eggs in the basket of your business having to succeed. It puts a ton of pressure on you as the owner to make sure that it never, ever falters or fails, that you have to sell it or pass it to your heirs in a way that accommodates the lifestyle you've grown to live at, which typically is very difficult, right? I mean, for example, if you're in a successful business and you're taking home $500,000 a year, well done. But if you sell it, you're probably not going to sell it for the number high enough to maintain a $500,000 a year income and lifestyle. Typically, there's about a 50 to 60% gap in those two numbers, right? So if you're taking 500 grand, in we'll call that EBITDA, depending on your industry, the multiple will vary. But let's say you sell it for $3 million. Well, a safe withdrawal rate on $3 million is about 120,000. Do that math right?
Yeah.
Yeah. About 120,000. That's a huge, huge gap. Now you add in Social Security, maybe some pension income or a 403 from your wife when she was a teacher, whatever. It's still not going to get you to that income level that you need. So lack of de-risking, of diversifying outside of your own business, and that comes from this third problem, which is just no clear cash management plan. You make money as a business. There's nobody telling you this is what you need to do with it to take care of your today needs and your future needs. And so you've got to start extracting profits from your company as quickly and as regularly as possible to fortify, to diversify, to save, to have something to go and invest in. This is a huge struggle for business owners, though, because you know that you can get a better return if you put the money back into your own business. And sometimes that is the wise thing to do, but not forever and not always. So having someone, again, an advisor, a trusted person with your best interest in mind, who knows you, who knows your business and who loves the Lord, to come alongside you and help to think through, okay, what do we need to do here to make sure that this business that God's blessing is going to take care of you in the latter years? And also, how can we, once that is checked, then you can become a conduit for generosity or for reinvestment or whatever. But having a clear cash management plan, a budget for your business income, diversifying outside of your business, investing, and then also, commingling personal and business. Those are the three, I'd say, that cost most business owners the most in time and taxes and energy and just, lack of clarity.
Got it. So the one thing I don't want to forget to get to is where can people find out more about open-handed wealth and the services that you provide?
Yeah, well, everything I do runs through my website. So you can go to openhandedwealth.com/resources, and everything I've written, recorded, podcasts I've done or been on like this one, all of it goes there. So you can, come, listen, read, watch, connect with me, schedule a free strategy session. There's no pressure, no sales pitches. I'd love to meet you and learn more about your situation. And then I've got some free resources as well for your listeners. If they go to openhandedwealth.com/freebies, like free giveaways, right? So openhandedwealth.com/freebies. I've got a handful of free resources there, including tax saving ideas for business owners, a beginner's guide to biblically responsible investing, a helpful, kind of handy tips on how to create your very first cash flow plan if you've never done that before, and a couple other things as well.
Awesome. And we'll make sure we have that in the show notes as well. And for all of our guests, at the very end here, we do 3 rapid fire questions. Oh,
great.
The first question is really derived from hundreds, maybe thousands of conversations I've had over the past many years. There's a common theme that comes up, and that is, well, when I was in school, they taught me this, or I learned that in school. When I was young, we did it like this. And so my question is, and I think as we have been asking, I have been so fascinated by the answers. If we could magically get all of the school administrators across the United States into one room, and you had a moment to give them one thing you thought they should include in the educational career of a student before they get out of high school, what would that one thing be?
Oh, you're going to put me on a spot with a question like that, Amos. Oh, man.
That's why we call it rapid fire.
Okay, I have to, there's so many great answers here. Certainly I would want, to give kids the hope of knowing that they were made on purpose, right? That they were made by someone who knows and loves them and made them on purpose. That would be one thing. For wearing my financial hat, I would say financial literacy is was so undervalued. I think it's kind of growing there, but man, it's so practical, so helpful, so common sense. I would love to see good, FinLit in school.
Awesome. Second question. What is your go-to book that over the years you have continually pulled out and got good insights out of?
Again, obvious answer, I think here would be the Bible, which is true. That is the book I read every single day, that I've scribbled so many notes in, and that I constantly return to for insights and just for encounters with the Lord. One written, perhaps not by so many authors. Man, that's a great question. It's a small book. I've read it a few times now. It's called How to Pray by R.A. Torrey.
Okay.
It's a beautiful book. Has nothing to do with finance or business, but it's an incredible book that will inspire you to get on your knees and pray. And I just think that's one of the best things that we can do.
Awesome. And the last question, in today's ever-changing world of technology, what is your favorite and most useful piece of technology that you use today?
Oh, man, that's another great question. It's split, I'd say, between the iPhone and ChatGPT.
Got it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope we can get you back on. I think we could talk for another 2 hours probably and unpack a few more things.
But I would enjoy it.
Yes, thank you so much. And for our listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to check out our past episodes. And don't forget to follow us so that you get alerts whenever new episodes are coming out. as well as you'll want to check out our new podcast website at Podbean, and the link for that will be in the show notes as well. Until next time, we appreciate you.